Hi, everyone. Welcome to part 3 of our series. Today, we're going to talk about the digital workflow, what type of equipment you might need for this. Well, do you actually need for this type of cases? And I'm also going to relate it to the analog workflow because, believe it or not, back in 2020, when I was trying to figure out the workflow, first, it was really hard because back then, not many people knew about it. And it's an actual funny story that 3 years ago, 2020, I see this doctor at the Zahn ballroom in Chicago talking about digital convergence. And I remember I went to him at the end of his presentation, and I told him, "You just ruined my business." Because he comes with his lecture talking about how you don't need to do conversions anymore. You don't need to do denture convergence. You don't need to go to the doctor's office and convert a denture because you can do everything digitally now. And I was really upset. And he remembers me. I saw him in Chicago this year, and he remembers, "I know what you told me. I still remember." And I have to tell you that 3 years later, it didn't ruin my business. It just made it grew tremendously with this type of workflow because it's just another alternative that you can add to your business. So I hope you guys enjoy and understand. I'm going to relate it to the analog also because it might be a lot of information at first, but feel free to ask some questions at the end if I speak through the process too much. But I think that I think you'll enjoy it. So in order to understand the digital workflow, you have to be really comfortable with data acquisition, design, and manufacture. What do I mean by that? Data acquisition is not so much getting your STL files and pre-planning your designs. It's more about understand how to relate data from the day of the surgery. Remember that for the digital workflow, you need to be able to get new scans at the day of the surgery so you can merge them to your pre-op scans, and you need to analyze them before you continue with the case. You need to be able to tell your doctors this is enough data, is not. And depending on the type of workflow, because there are several strategies that you can use for this digital workflow, you need to, if the doctor is taking their scans, again, you need to be able to see what data you have and see you can impose it into another one. And if they don't have an intraoral scanner, you need to be comfortable using it yourself. I have the Med 500. And I use it the day of the surgery to record the scans. So they'll take some impressions instead of scanning the patient's mouth. And I use that intraoral scanner to quickly digitalize whatever impression they took without having to spend too much time pouring models and so on. The design software. At this point, Exocad and 3Shape, those are the main softwares that we all use for digital design. But it's not about setting teeth anymore. You should nail this part once you enter the digital workflow. You have to be really comfortable with merging data. So at the day of the surgery, you're getting new records. You need to be able to relate all your new data to your design in order to make it quick and efficient. We're talking about same-day dentistry, same-day conversion. So you want to be able to align your models into, or your scans into your design software the right way and the right with enough data that you have to merge into your pre-op design to be fast and efficient. The manufacturing is not so much about going through the design software, not design software, through the software of your printer, but what type of printer you need to use. I have the Einstein from Desktop Health. I love that printer. I have others that I don't use for this type of workflow. First, you need to confirm or make sure that your accuracy is right. You need to pick a printer that can provide a product that is accurate enough. When we do the digital workflow, we don't use Typebases or cylinders into your restorations. Your restoration goes straight to the, oh, here we go. There's a all right now. Your restoration has to go straight to your multi-unit abutments, to your implants, and the screw, there's no cylinder. The screw goes through that resin. So the material that you use has to be accurate. The printer has to be accurate enough for this to be strong and not to break later on. Also, is all about speed. We're talking about same day conversions. Digitally, we have to make sure we are doing these cases in this time manners. Like this print, as you can see, it takes more or less 25 minutes, an arch for the same day. It takes 25 minutes to print. And like I said, I have other printers that are good, but they might take up to 40-ish minutes to print this exact same restoration. We're talking about timing. When the patient is in the doctor's office in the chair waiting for the restoration, we need to be very efficient with time with this type of cases. And also the type of resin that you use. I use Flexera Smile Ultra Plus. I love the resin. I love the benefits that the resin gives you, the ability to absorb the forces of that resin for this type of cases is crucial, because the patient is going to wear this temporaries for 3 to 6 months, and we want to make sure that it doesn't break. So I do love this material. It took me a while to find the right material and to trust the digital workflow, just because I was afraid that the restorations could break. And this is not the case with Flexera Ultra Plus. Okay, so for the full arch workflow, we're just gonna go overview. Hopefully you watched the other webinars before, but basically we go through the denture planning, we do the conversion that same day in the patient's mouth, and then we have to do final impressions later on, 3 to 6 months later, once the tissue goes back to place, and we need to take final impressions for our final restorations. So and this is just an example. I used this previously. We have a case that we're planning for a conversion. We start doing bone reduction, start setting the teeth. We make sure we have enough restorative space, and we create our dentures. After the denture is done, I send it to my assistant. She does the stent into another software and sends it directly to the printer for the doctors to use the day of the surgery. Most of my doctors do freehand, so they need this stent in order to accurately place the multi-unit, the screw axis of our multi-unit comes in the lingual in the right place. And we use e-guide for our stents in the eye stent. And I love the resin too. It's very clear. It's very, very nice. Not that we need, because we're just going to use that stent for like 3 or 5 minutes, but it's really nice resin to use. We send our teeth to print just the teeth on a Flexera Smile Ultra Plus. We print our bases with Flexera base. Again, I love the color of Flexera base. The pink is really nice. It blends really well with the acrylic that we use if we're doing the pickup and the patient's mouth. And again, what I love about this, the Einstein and the software that comes with it, is that the supports for the bases, the autopilot feature places those supports in the best place possible that is not the intaglio or the socket, so that the bonding of the teeth and the base is really well done once you go to that part. And then we have our denture ready for conversion. And for the conversion, I'm not going to talk about much how the process is, because we did it before, but we use the smart system in order to accurately capture the implant position and have our nice restoration. We don't need to make big windows anymore. If you don't know about the system, go watch the previous webinars, because we dive more into how that works. But what I like about this system is that tiny holes doesn't need to have big windows, and keeps the integrity of your restoration, the strength, and the beauty. The aesthetics is really, really nice. One thing that I was asked before on my last webinar, that I mentioned this system. I mentioned a discount code that I had for the system, and I had a couple of people reaching out about that. You can use DDC's Dora Denture conversion. You can use that for those parts. I don't pay for the parts. The doctors supply those. So when I order that kit for them, I can use that code, or if they order themselves, I give them their code. It's a nice little discount that they have every time they need to if they do this type of cases. So we go through the conversion process and we have our restoration ready for the patient to wear temporarily. So after we do the conversion, what do we have? We have our implant position that was captured in the mouth. That is the best, most accurate place possible to capture. And we have our gingival contours. So how can we, too fast, how can we, what do we need in order to capture exactly the same thing, but without having to convert that denture in the patient's mouth? We have to use a verification jig, or we have to splint the implants, make some sort of jig. You can use powder resin or jig gel or this bars. These are it's a kit that it has pre-sized little bars that you can just pick the measurements, slide through the cylinders and connect them together. It's really fast if you want to do it for the day of the surgery, instead of having to build that jig from start to finish. And basically, this is just the workflow if you wanted to do analog for the next day. You take you go through the surgery, and then you have to take those final impressions to capture, to make sure that our implants are we have the implants splinted together, and we take impression to make sure that we capture both the implants and our integument. So this is what normally we do for final stage, or if you wanted to do it the next day without having to do the conversion in the patient's mouth. So once you're done with that, you pour your model, you use DES scan bodies. Those are universal, right? Everyone has them. It's the ones that are super easy to use. I use them all the time, or with old other cases, or old cases that now I use the digital workflow, so I don't need this much anymore. But you place your scan bodies from DES on your model, you digitalize them, and then you design your wax up and you go from there. So from the same, if you're thinking about, okay, if I can place the scan bodies on my model, maybe we can place scan bodies in the mouth, since is the most accurate place to get that implant position or passivity, and go from there. So it's really hard to scan full arch intraorally, and this is changing. I just saw Trios 5 like a week or 2 weeks ago, and it's amazing how well it captures everything. So 2.5 years ago, when I was going to the digital workflow, for me at the time, it was not possible to believe in the full arch intraoral scanning. So, and the reason is because the spam without teeth is really big. And there are techniques that I see people using or doctors using, and I apologize, I grabbed a couple of this next couple of slides. It's just screenshots that I took from the internet and Facebook. I don't own these pictures. I don't have the doctor's names or technicians or whoever posted them, but these are not mine. But it's just to show you that doctors and technicians and technicians are coming with ways to try intraoral scanning and for full arch. And you might be creating a denture with some slots, basically reduce the spam of the gingiva between the scan bodies to accurately scan them together. And this is just another way. Place the DES scan bodies in the mouth and use some sort of some sort of bite registration material to kind of block out the gingiva, because that is the most difficult part to scan. It's almost like trying to scan a field full of grass. It's almost all the same. So that's how the gingiva behaves. And there are several techniques and workflows for full arch and intraoral that includes intraoral scanning. And some are just, again, this is from Facebook or from lectures that I attended, the Instaresa, Excel, even companies like this, Keystone Dental Group developed the Nexus, that basically they all serve the same purpose, capture the implant position with scan bodies and avoiding having the tissue to give you inaccuracy. So for me, these are just a couple examples, but for me as a technician, these are not the right ones for me to incorporate in my business because it involves intraoral scanning. My doctors don't have an intraoral scanner, most of them. I have one, so it's not, I cannot scan the patient. I cannot ask my doctors to scan the patients with my scanner. So these are just some options out there that doctors say work, or where people that is using these workflows, they believe and they use it. But for me as a technician, that wouldn't be possible just because it's not ideal. I'm bringing the workflow to my doctors. I have to use what I can to make the workflow easy for them, not to bring things that will incur some accuracies in the future. So I rely in photogrammetry technology for that accuracy. And in a nutshell, the photogrammetry technology, it gives you you are able to capture the passivity of the implants without having to make any impressions or verification checks. So for this technology, there are several systems in the market. The iMetric is one of them, I believe. I don't know, I've seen this system for a while, but you have to, I don't know when one was created with the other, but you have to you have to calibrate your scanner every single time. The flags are small. You just have to angle them in a way that you can see two faces of that scan markers in order for the scanner to capture them all. The problem that I have with the iMetric when I saw it, because I don't have it, but when I was trying to understand the different type of equipment, the different type of devices and systems, is that you need some workaround once you take that scan in order to have it ready for your design software. It might not be that complicated, but at the time, to me, it seemed a lot. Another one in the market is the micromapper. That is fairly new, and it's pretty much the same thing as an external camera that captures the implant position with the proprietary flags. The geometry on those are on the top of the flag instead of on the sides. The good thing with this one, and again, I only saw it once as a demo, but you can use the scan markers for the implant position and also to scan with intraoral scanner for your alignment markers later on. And then we have the PIC Dental, and this is the one that I use. This is one that I love the most because it's really, really, really easy to use and to output your data once you do the scans. And another cool thing about it is that you can use it for any implant system available, abutment level or implant level. If I only use Nobel and Straumann, and all of them are multi-unit abutments, so I have the flags for SRA and NUA. But if you use an implant, if you go direct to the implant for some reason, they have those flags. If they don't have it for some reason, they will create those scan markers for you. So anything that you might need, they don't have it already, they will create it. That is, I think, super cool because even with the smart system, they were able to create the analogs for my model creator since I already was using the smart system for my conversions, my immediate conversions. They were able to create my analogs digitally for me to relate and use on my designs with my PIC scanner. So that is really cool from them as a company. So how does it work? 3 steps. First one is the implant capture. So you place your flags on the implants, you orient them in a way that the camera that is on outside the mouth can see them all and start scanning. You learn strategies for this to work. Yes, the flags are a little bigger if you consider if you have 6, 7, 8, or 9 implants, but you do learn strategies how to position for you to have a quick and accurate scan. So you place the flags on your implants, you will orient them in a way. Most of the times we do the posterior flags to the lingual and then the anteriors to the buccal, so we don't have to stretch the patient's mouth so much. I have some cases that the doctor don't even hold the patient. They don't even they're just relaxing while I'm doing the scan, because there's no need even for retractors, depending how well you position the flags. And this is how the implant capture is done, and the time that it takes is really, really fast. Normally, it actually takes longer to position the flags in the right way than that waiting for that scan. It's done. It's probably like under 10 seconds. And yes, you might say, okay, it's only 4 implants. It's fast. Believe me, 6. I scanned one patient at one time with 9 implants. It took a little longer because there was a lot, but we got it done. So it's all about the strategies that you learn, but that is with any implant system, with any device in the market that you learn. Once you capture that data, you can see the implants right away. You can see your data, how they relate to each other, with what type of implant system you just selected and capture, and you output your STL right away. So this is what I love about the system. You scan, you save it, and you can send it to your designer if needs to be sent right away to start merging it to your designs. The second step is the soft tissue registration. So once we do the conversion, Dr. Sutures place healing caps in the mouth, and they can either scan the tissue, or with a bloody, again, most of my doctors don't have an intraoral scanner. So what I recommend is just take an impression. It's a lot easier for them to take an impression, and then with my intraoral scanner, I just scan that impression directly, and we flip it right on the software, and we can merge it to our design as well, really, really fast. And then the step number 3 is just align one on top of the other. We took the pic file that was our implant position. We have our tissue registration, and we just need to impose one on top of the other, and we have our models aligned and ready to proceed to our design, if you're doing the design from scratch at the day of the surgery, or if you're merging it with your old designs. And then you might say, okay, we can align those, but how do we capture the vertical dimension? Like, there's no, how do we relate one to the other? There are several alignment strategies. Again, you learn with the process of the workflow, that whatever you learn it. And I only gonna mention 2. And this one is using alignment markers. Again, I'm a technician. I cannot go to my doctors or surgeon and ask them just screw some extra parts or alignment markers into the patient's mouth, because it will make my life easier with additional workflow. I can do this, but it's just as a reference. If it's a doctor that has an in-house lab and that they're doing their own for large cases in-house, this is most of the time what they do. You place strategic either jigs or special screws in strategic places, and you have to keep them from beginning to end. You have to scan the patient with those markers before the surgery happens, while the surgery is happening, and at the end. So there's a lot of pros, I wouldn't say. Maybe it's easier for in-house to do that, but cons, they might move data, might not align correctly. You might have issues with the bite. It's just a strategy that if you have it nailed down, it probably would work. But for me as a technician, I can just use this because it doesn't make sense for them or for me. So I like to use the denture. And how do we do that? I'm already designing a denture before the case, even the patient even goes to surgery, because again, my doctors need a stent. It's not just because we change the digital workflow doesn't mean that they change their workflow. They still do the surgery freehand. So we are going to need, no matter what, a denture design and printed for our stent. So might as well just print an extra denture and use that for your alignment strategy. So if you have to have a case, this is the double arch. This is actually the very first case that I did digitally with the digital workflow. We have the case, we go through the design the teeth, design bone reduction, dentures. And once we get to this stage, I save my files, I send it to my assistant, she does my stents, prints them, and then we print an extra set of dentures. And why do we do that? Because once the surgery is done, we can easily use those to do a wash. We confirm the vertical dimension. We can pull a model from that wash that was just done. That is basically our implant, our tissue registration. We did the PIC scan, so we have the implant position as well. And then I just needed to come back to my design, swap my jaws. Instead of having my jaw that I did my bone reduction, I swapped it to the new tissue scan tissue impression that I have, and then redo the case, print it, and then deliver. Color, make it pretty, the pink, and deliver. And we have our case done the same day without having to convert the denture in the patient's mouth. Another case, we did the planning, I designed the dentures. This is the scan of the PIC, the day of the surgery. Well, not the day of surgery. This happened, they did the surgery on a Saturday, I wasn't available. They decided to do it anyway and wait for me for Monday. And this is how quick the scan is done. That's it. So I really love the entire workflow just because it's fast, it's easy. Once you nail the design and merging data and everything else that you need to know, it makes these cases a lot more predictable, and it's just faster overall to get this done. And the capturing the data is what's fascinating because it's really fast. So again, we use the dentures, we do a wash with both dentures and a bite. We want to make sure and the really good thing about this is also that you can confirm with that denture, you can confirm if the bite is the vertical is too open, if it should close, if it's showing too much pain or not, depending on how severe the case was, if the patient had teeth or not, and whatever changes you did on your planning, you can confirm that at that very stage of taking the records to make your final a little bit more prettier if you have to. You redesign, you print it, you add some pink around, and then you deliver. So this is an amazing technique once you dial it again. It might not be feasible for every single technician or lab, but for me, it helps tremendously the business, just because we can have a result that is predictable and reproducible. If something happens, we can reproduce this right away. So once we're done with the surgery and we need to move to the final restorations, then everything is a lot easier because half of it is done. And I'm just going to show you a case that this was not a case that was done at the digitally, but even if I design my dentures to be converted in the mouth, bringing all the records that we captured digitally, because for final impressions, the steps are exactly the same. The same thing that you do at the day of the surgery, if you're doing the case the same day, is exactly the same steps that you would take for your final restorations. You capture your implant position, you capture your tissue. You have to get your tissue registration because the tissue changes from the day of the surgery to 4 to 6 months later. And then you just need to merge everything together. So if we have a case that we did prior and we saved it, it's a matter of bringing all new data to your design and then just start swapping things around. And it might look easy, it takes some time to get used to and comfortable with the swapping and everything on the design. But once you nail that, you bring your pre-op to your old design that you start creating for your denture, you swap your jaws to the new ones, you redo your gingiva, you don't need to have a flange anymore. You can bring the screw axis in position just to make sure that everything is in the right place and all the screw axis is in the lingual, depending if you're doing changes or not. Redo your tissue, and then save your wax up for the next step. So I start in this case as a denture, so there's no way for me to just bring back all the data and just make holes through my denture. I'm on a denture project, so I just finished my whole case as a denture, and then I just needed to bring it to another project that only has the screw axis. The only thing that I need to do is bring my wax up and place the screws through the wax up and finish it up. So this is how quick it can be going to your finals. On the analog way, you have to reset, you have to articulate, you have to set teeth in wax. If you have to do some changes, you have to move the teeth around, close the vertical. Digitally is a lot easier to do these changes and keep all the data. I can go back to my surgery, to my pre-ops if I need to. I can go back and relate data. Okay, this is what changed, this is what not, the midline is off. I can relate everything together because we can just stack scans on top of scans on top of scans, while in the analog way, we can't. So it's frustrating. Once you lose that vertical dimension, you can't relate it anymore if there's no teeth or anything else to relate to your opponent. But in the digital, you can just add everything together. Even if you don't need it or you're not going to use it, you can just superimpose data on top of data. And then you have your prototype. If everything is good from the surgery, you want to do a quick try-in, you can print, add some pink color, or even the patient can wear for a couple of months or a couple of weeks. Normally we don't go months, and then we just go directly to the final. If everything is good with the design and we did a prototype, we can go straight to a ceramic, and you can use tie bases. You can use the ceramic on a zirconia bar. You can use no tie bases. There's a lot of different finals that you can do. I'm starting to do a lot more zirconias now. I don't do zirconia. I actually work with Sarah from Meraki Dental Studio. She's amazing, and this is some of her work. I never offered ceramic before because I don't do it. I always specialize in chair side assistance and PMMAs, hybrids. And now I'm a lot more comfortable offering zirconia because I can control the design. We can do the try-ins, the prototypes, and then I can just send it to her, and she copies exactly the design that the patient loved, and everything works wonderfully. And again, it's reproducible. If something breaks, if I can just reprint another prototype that the patient can wear while we're waiting for something to finish the case or something. And oh my goodness, that's it. I ran through my presentation like no wonder. So we have a lot of Q&A.
So first, Dora, I just want to maybe launch the last poll if we can and discuss with you what we found on the last two. So the first one was, do you offer conversions? And 75% of our attendees said yes, they do, and 25% said no, they don't. So that's something that I don't know if you want to touch or you want to say anything about that. So we have 25% that do not offer conversions. What's the easiest way to get started if they wanted to?
First, you have to decide which type of conversion you want to offer. If is the one that the technician goes to the office and do the conversions, or if it's the digital workflow. So in order to do the conversions in the patient's mouth, there's not much to learn. I always say the same thing. The most important thing, I think, is the planning, because if you plan it wrong, the conversion is just going through the process, and it might take a couple of times to figure out how to do it well. But if you don't plan the denture correctly, if the teeth are not in the right place, you're taking decisions at the day of the surgery that if the planning is not right, those decisions are going to be wrong once you go to the final restoration. So learn how to do, or hopefully you know how to do planning for all-on-fours really well, just because planning a denture is different than planning a denture for all-on-four. The tooth position changes, that you have to deal with vertical dimension, with bone reduction if needed. So there's a couple of things that you have to be comfortable with doing prior, and then doing the conversion in the patient's mouth. Again, there's several ways to do it. What I like to use and recommend everyone to do it to use is the smart system just because it makes everything easier. And if you want to look into the digital workflow, definitely do, because like I said at the beginning, I thought that it was not gonna, the digital workflow is gonna ruin my business, because I thought I'm really well holding my doctors by the hand when I go to the office and do this conversion. So now if you're able to do everything on the computer, then they don't need me anymore. Well, I'm bringing the technology to them, so they still want me there. First, they cannot go through the digital workflow without me. I'm bringing to them, but I'm able to just do everything more efficiently, and it's all about reproducibility. Like I don't even know if that word exists, but it's about being able being able to reproduce your temporary over and over, because we all know if we don't like those calls, oh, the patient broke the temporary, how do I do it? Oh, I don't know, we did the conversion, we don't have extra records. With the digital workflow, where there are some things that you can do the day of the surgery to capture those records also, even the analog way, just go ahead and take extra records, because what I like the most is being able to, oh, something broke, oh, don't worry, I'll print another one and I'll send it to you. And that's just what I think that it's needed. It's being able to reproduce whatever you did, and just be able to just the next day send something to the doctor if something happens. And again, it's the prototype. Once you design, you can merge everything. You can merge the photos of the patient, the videos. I don't have a face scanner just because that would be, first, I don't think I need it. I mean, I could benefit from them from face scanner, but that would mean that I will need to go to the office for extra records, and I don't have the time for that. So workway photos work really well for the digital design and the planning. But the ability of being able to just do everything on your side and have something that the doctors can expect and the patients, it's amazing. So if you're looking to conversions, first decide which one do you want to use, and then look at everything. If you're the market, and the digital workflow is great, but it's very costly. So you have to be very comfortable with designing, like I said, everything in between, but even to get the equipment, it's costly. So it has to make sense for the lab or the business itself.
The next poll was, are you printing dentures? So 38% of our attendees are, and 62% are not. So that's something else if you want to like, how did you get started with printing? That was
so I started with printing when Flexera Smile Ultra Plus came to the market, and the iSense. So I have 2 iSense right now, and before, even for my dentures for conversion, I don't do dentures, I do dentures for conversion. That is different. So before, I wouldn't trust any printed material. I tried in the past, and I wouldn't trust any of it, because we had a successful conversion every single time. Our traditional dentures were fine, or even I tried some digital dentures like workflow, and it worked fine. I did not want to ruin the conversions and the relationship that I had with my doctors, because I wanted to switch to printed dentures. So once Flexera came to the market and Flexera Smile Ultra Plus came out, I follow a couple of doctors and a couple of people that was using the resin for a long time. So it's not like, okay, let me buy this and I'm going to use it. I have trust issues. So it takes me a long time to trust the product. So I follow a lot of people that were using different brands, and I ended up getting that one just because that's what I felt more confident with. And I have no problems at all. The Einstein is an amazing printer. Flexera is amazing resin, and the Smile Ultra Plus, if I could do the digital workflow to have that one monolithic print in Flexera Smile Ultra Plus that I can just color or add some composite, that's the ideal. If dentures, printing the teeth and the base and assembling them together, it's really easy too. Actually, we spoke about that on the other webinar, on the previous webinar, how to do it. So I would say start, because I feel that printing is here to stay, and sooner or later, more products are coming out too. So I think if it makes sense for your business, try it. I think once printers came to our business, to my lab, it's been tremendous. Like, I need this denture again, like, okay, I can just print it. And this just happened. We went for a surgery. We designed the denture, and we were gonna do the immediate load, and the bone was not good enough to hold the implants. And the doctor just placed the implants, suture, bury them, suture. I just used that denture that was not adapted because it was just for conversion. We did a wash with that denture. I came back, I just redid the intaglio, and I printed new denture. Patient is super happy with it because the design was done, everything was done, and it was just another solution that we could have done instead of having to really reline the denture and the patient using glue and fixband and all that stuff. So printing dentures is here, and it's here to stay. So I would say give it a try.
Yeah, it's fast, it's simple, and you wind up having a happy doctor and a happy patient. So that's great, and that's what,
And it's fast too. It's super fast. Whatever the resin is good. The colors of the footer, the base is really, really nice too. Sometimes I'm trying to match the same color with composite, or the colors. I use a lot of coloring instead of composite because it's just faster, and it's hard to match that nice pink color of the footer base. But this is.
So we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the questions for us. The first one is from Dan. Dan Elfring, I'm so happy you decided to join us. He said he was going to, and he has a question for you. He has a couple of questions. So the first one, he says, did you say you don't use two bases? Do you print and then bond to bases after printing?
So that was, can I say it again?
Do you say you don't use two bases? Do you print and then bond to bases after printing?
So I'm assuming he's asking about what I just spoke about, this patient that we couldn't load that day. So yes, instead of, we could reline. So when I designed the denture for conversion, I don't really care. I don't ask my doctors to do custom trays or border molding or anything, because we're going to customize. All the flanges are gone. If there's sometimes, even if they do intraoral scans, half of the data is missing, or like important data that you would need for a denture is missing. So when I design my dentures, I don't really care where my borders are or anything, because that is just temporarily, right? After we do the conversion, everything is going to be removed. All the flanges and the palette, everything is going to be removed. So I don't really care of making a nice borders on my denture. So when this case came, after suturing and everything, my denture was not enough. So we could do a reline in the office, and I did have the acrylic, the same acrylic that I use for actually I used the same acrylic. We did some sort of reline just for the patient to take it home, but I use before that I just did a wash of that denture. I scanned it with my intraoral scanner, and then I just redid my base. Instead of having the patient relining that base, it's a lot easier to just, in the software, you just bring your data back to the software. You just have to basically swap the jaw and readapt the base of your denture, and then print it again. And it's a denture that is more accurate. There's no two materials that the patient's gonna wear. It just makes it a lot easier. You can use acrylic to reline a denture, but I just prefer, it's so easy to redo it that I prefer to redo it, because it's just nicer how it looks for the patient to wear, and it doesn't cost much anyway. Does that answer the question? I hope that was the question. Yes.
The next question is, can your printer print the prosthesis so you can bond in a tie base? And if so, which tie bases do you use?
So I don't use tie bases at all, because I have the PIC system. I have photogrammetry. Every time I design something, everything is straight to the multi-unit abutment. The only time I would use a tie base is if I'm doing a prototype for an implant system that I don't have the flags from, anything besides Nobel and Straumann. I just, on the software, there are ways to just make like a hole through your wax up, more or less where that implant is. I just make it wide enough to place the cylinder in there, so I don't use the type base will be the cylinder for prototypes. And then I just use acrylic, straight acrylic in there, and it works fine. You can even use acrylic on printed resin, just to cover up a little bit. I tried it before and it works. And it's just a prototype for the patient to wear. But most of my cases is Nobel or Straumann. So every single case that I use photogrammetry on, there's no tie bases. The only tie base that would have is just for the final ceramic if we go that route. But you don't have to. With photogrammetry is so accurate that you can even go straight to the multi-unit with ceramic. I didn't try yet. I know there's a lot of doctors using it. I just need to get comfortable before I present that to my doctors. But it can be done just because the accuracy of the photogrammetry device that you use is there. So prototypes, all my prototypes that we do, there's no tie bases. We don't add any tie bases or cement any tie bases. The screw just goes through. And there are different, on the design stage, you can use different type of screws for the different type of restorations, but there's no tie bases at all.
The next one is, do you plan your denture or does the doctor?
The denture, I do. The doctors plan their implants. They don't do guided surgery. They still plan the cases, but we don't print ties or anything. They'll do it freehand. And we just use the stent for the tooth position to make sure that we use multi-units in every single case. So if sometimes they'll ask for my design ahead to merge to theirs. But we have the stent to make sure that all the screw axis of all implants are on the lingual. So we use that as our planning, and they do follow that very well. And if they don't, I'll eventually stop working with them because it doesn't make sense to go through all the planning and everything and then having them not care about prosthetic position. We need to follow where the teeth are for a reason, not just where the bone is. Yes, it's a balance, but that's why we use the stent to make sure that all our screw axes are hidden on the lingual.
Dan also wants to know, right now, is Desktop Health the only approved printer for Flexera, and what light box is approved for that material?
So I think it is. You have the Einstein or Envision 1 E1, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the only ones approved right now. I use the Auto Flash. And one thing that is important with the Auto Flash is that if your tray, and I didn't know this, but if your tray where you cure, and this I guess is for every single print, if it's cloudy and it starts like changing colors, you need to change it. It should be really transparent, because that can be a problem for not curing your material properly. And I didn't know about that. But you need to make sure that every once in a while, if your tray gets cloudy, you need to change it, because then the wavelength, the light doesn't get through that tray uniformly and is not curing your bridge correctly.
So the next question is for Stan. Thank you, Stan, for joining us and for your question. He wants to know, what material are you using for reline?
So I don't do, again, dentures reline much. That happen to use and I'm not the best person to answer what reline material is best for 3D printer, 3D printed dentures. Oh my goodness. I know there's a lot of options that doctors recommend on Facebook and so on, but the material that I use for those type of cases, and case in this patient that we couldn't load and we just wanted to give her something to wear, I use Q resin. That is the same material that I use for picking up the cylinders, the conversion, when we do the conversion in the patient's mouth. That's exactly the same resin that I use. I used to pick up the cylinders. It bonds really well with Flexera. It has a bonding that you just you apply the bonding, you light cure for a little bit, and then you just inject, and then you let it set. So, and don't take me wrong, like most of my cases are still conversion in the patient's mouth. I love to do more digitally, the digital workflow all the way through. But for that to happen, the doctors or the surgical centers, they need to have a printer in their office to be efficient with time. Because I work with offices that are more or less like an hour away from me. So it doesn't make sense to get all the records from the surgery, come to my lab, and then print and everything, assemble, and then drive back or ship it. If they are okay delivering the next day, it's perfect. If it's the same day, it has to be an office that either has a printer in the office so we can utilize that, or it has to be close to my lab to utilize my lab. So most of my cases are still in the mouth, but because I have all the technology, I take all the records that I need also after that conversion, so I can reproduce everything just like I did, like if I did the digital workflow that same day. But for the reline, I'm sorry, I kind of derail a little bit from the question, but I use Q resin, but again, that is temporarily. It might not be the best on a long term, so I would refer to doctors that use printed dentures long term, I guess, or for a longer period of time for a better accurate answer.
So I'd like to thank all of our attendees for joining us today and for being gracious enough to answer all of our questions. Dora, a special thanks to you from all of us at Zahn for preparing and presenting this 3-part series. It has been wonderful, and we've got nothing but great feedback from you. So again, I really want to thank you.
I thank you so much. I thank you guys because you've been amazing, all of you. Like, what an awesome team to work with. I appreciate you all. And I left my QR code. If anyone has specific questions, you can always reach out to me. Don't spam me, please, but reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help with any questions they might have later on regarding anything from the series 1, 2, or 3. Sorry.
And please go to our YouTube channel under Zahn Academy, and you'll see Dora's part 1 and part 2. This will be up in a couple of days. So if you want to watch them all together, if you want to refresh yourself, please don't hesitate to go, like I said, to YouTube. They're there. And like plenty of others, you'll be surprised what you can find there as far as education goes. Tomorrow, coming up on Zahn Academy, that's March 23rd, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Chris Schermerhorn, the owner of Northern Virginia Dental Laboratory, will be with us, and he'll be discussing 100% digitally designed and milled Zerlux acetal frames. This is part 1 of a part 2 series, so we'd love to have you join us tomorrow. You can go right on Zahn Academy and sign up for that. Registration is still open. And just want to talk to you about a little financing program that we have in case you are interested in getting started with 3D printing and the Einstein printers. Route 66 is available to you. You can go to your Zahn representative and they can tell you more about it, but Route 66 does not require any payments for the first 6 months, as well as no interest for the first 6 months. So this can really help you get that printer, into your laboratory and start getting started with some conversions as soon as possible. We'd be happy to help. Any other questions for Dora or for any of the materials that we discussed here, you can go right to your Zahn representative and they'd be happy to help you as well. But I think we have another question, Dora, so let's see. Do you use exocad or 3Shape?
I use exocad, but I'm I think that is a matter. If you understand the workflow in the analog way, why do we do denture first and then the conversion or what type of records we need from the conversion? It's just apply it to your digital design. I use exocad just because at the time I was trying to figure out which software to go with. I felt more comfortable with exocad, but I know amazing technicians that do the entire this exact workflow on 3Shape. It's just a matter of applying it. Okay, if we do a denture and then we place some holes on it on the day of the surgery, why don't we design this way? You design, you open your project, even on 3Shape with dentures. And I have to say, 3Shape is amazing for denture design. And I think I didn't play with it long enough, but better than exocad that I think. So why don't you design your denture, keep it, instead of if you're doing the digital workflow, just keep the borders as it should be, a full a null and four should be. And then you just bring a new project once you have your new tissue model and your skin markers, and just add that and make some holes on it. So I don't think the softwares both work. You just have to understand what you need to do in order to accomplish your end product, and then just try to apply it. Okay, if I do it analog this way, or even Exocad, I know that a lot of people ask me, okay, how can you do those steps in 3Shape? Just relate to what you normally do. If I do this in one software, you can do exactly the same on the other one. It's just a matter of understanding the software enough to kind of sometimes trick it, to make it think that you're doing something and then the other. But again, I derail. I use Exocad.